Moller. Web and native app digital accessibility together. Alicamp. Gold sponsors ANZ, Intopia and Telstra. Silver sponsors Canva and Coles. Supporters Rumour, the design recruiter.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and glad that I got that clicker. I feel like I would have forgotten too. So my name's Laura Moller. I'm a Senior Digital Accessibility Analyst at Coles. And today I want to talk to you about what web and native app website could look like together, doing that for digital accessibility. So I'm going to start with an acknowledgement of country, then a little bit about myself and my accessibility story, followed by exploring the Coles original accessibility model, how we've had to change and adapt, and what that new model, which is a work in progress, is looking like. Then, what are some of the challenges? So, Coles Group and myself acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. We recognise the strength and resilience, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise that ongoing connection to lands, waters, and skies. So in reference to that connection in lands and waters, I wanted to share a little bit about the lands where I come from and where I was born, which is in Darwin, in the north of Australia. So that's the lands of the Larrakia Nation. And it's a land and it's also sea country. One particular thing that I love about the land and the nature in Darwin is something called mangroves. So mangroves are a coastal tree and they live along the coastline and beaches. I'm actually made a skirt for Alicamp, which was a little bit challenging on the weekend, and it's got mangroves on it. It's by a First Nations artist called Maxine Charlie, and it's called Mangroves at Night, so it's got a dark background, and the mangroves are sort of ochre, earthy colours, and they curve the roots out of the water. And mangroves all curve and interconnect and link together, so they actually provide a safe space for small fish, crabs, etc. And for me, it links back in with our accessibility community and our camp, because we provide the same safe space for people to learn. So a little bit about me and my origin story. I am proudly disabled and queer, so always here to talk about the models of disability and the social models, so if you want to come and chat, please feel free. I worked 7 years in accessibility, and I work in Coles in an awesome team of just 4 people. So my manager, Mel O'Brien, who you heard from yesterday in the chat about scaling accessibility, and my awesome colleagues, Sam and Christy. So I started at NAB in 2018, and I learned web accessibility first from Madhavi, who's now at Intopia, and she was a great teacher. My boss at the time, Adam, he's like, well, you really need to learn native accessibility next, native apps. So I got to learn from Michelle, who now works at the ABC, all about how to do app accessibility. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2019, and it took me about a year before I was well enough to start working at Coles, and I moved there in 2020. So let's get into what that model looks like. The squad structure was very divided. So we had squads who worked on only app features, and we had squads that worked on only website features. I included some fun facts as well. So the Coles app actually only became shoppable in 2021, and I know because I was working on it at the time. And before that, it was more like just recipes, in-store experiences. And website has been around for a lot longer. So it was actually first accepted online orders in 1999. So our original agile model starts off with inclusive design first of all. We had a web checklist for the designers we had an app checklist, and we would do regular one-to-one meetings with our designers, usually every 2 weeks. Then we got into accessibility requirements. We're helped by BAs to add these into the stories alongside other acceptance criteria. We had one for web and one for app. There was 11 criteria in web and 13 in app. Then we move on to build to requirements. So we have a number of awesome engineers who will take those accessibility requirements and build to them, followed by our testers, who we have a different web guide and an app guide to help them know how to test those accessibility requirements. Followed by some feature level testing, which the accessibility team would do just to come in at a high level near the end to pick up if anything has been missed. And finally, to launch and repeat, like any good agile model. So there was a lot of separate web and app development, and there were issues. So you could get inconsistent features between the platforms. And in some cases, you might be designing for web first and then app a lot later. And even different design patterns used. So if you're someone who likes to shop on the website and the app, you could get a very inconsistent experience. One example of this was modify order. So this was originally built for just the website. If you tried to modify your order in the app, you just got kicked out to the website, which was not great. And we've only it took a number of years to build this feature in app as well as web. So what were the changes then? Near the start of the year, calls undergo like a little bit of structure changes, and it was focused more on the customer perspective and the pillars rather than just those separate app or web. These are inspire, so things like what recipes can you look up? We have a few like celebrity chefs and things like that. Shopping, so the core shopping experience. Checkout, and personalization, which I did include a picture of a cute cat and young girl. Then in terms of the squad structure, we have product manager, associate product manager, designer, app and website developers, testers, and accessibility analysts. So how are we integrating this new model? There's 3 particular areas that we have changed and more still yet to change. But the first of those is with inclusive design. So we've created a design tip sheet, and I'll show it to you later, that incorporates both app and web. And we also changed the way that we're interacting with the designers. So instead of that one-to-one, which can be challenging in a small team, we are joining the designers in their design jams. And that we're finding is more effective in terms of our time and giving that direct feedback as quickly and easy as possible. Then when it comes to the accessibility requirements, we've combined those 11 and 13 into 11 together. And to do that, some of them match pretty well, but there's some we've actually moved out, such as for content design. They've picked up our page titles. For example, we had a criteria about that. And designers picked up touch targets, which used to be in there. So some of these we're moving earlier in the process. Then when it comes to accessibility testing, which is our third one, my colleague Christy created an amazing guide of how to do that testing on both web and app. So this design tip sheet was really designed to help, no pun intended, sorry, was designed to help lighten the load on us as a small team. And it covers a lot of the visual WCAG criteria. So the first one is, does my design work in any orientation and zoom level? Followed by, is text and UI contrast high enough? Then, have I ensured color it's not the only way to convey meaning. 4, can users pause auto-playing content and animations, which is one that comes up quite frequently. 5, are touch targets accessible? 6, have I minimized errors and made recovery easy? 7, can users control the timing? And 8, are there gesture alternatives? So if we have on app, say a horizontally swiping carousel, do we have a button or something? So if you have a mobility disability, you can easily activate it. Then we move into the accessibility requirements. They're long name Accessibility Acceptance Criteria, or AACs, because first one is a little bit of a mouthful. And I'm going to zoom in on the first one, but I'll read them all to you. So first is keyboard access and visible focus, followed by zoom and resize, and focus management, accessible coding, form fields, error handling, orientation, status updates, alt text, screen reader only text, and animations. So these are what goes into the user stories, and there are slightly more details under these, and I'll share them at the end so you can see the full version. So I'll deep dive on keyboard access and visible focus. So what that sounds like in the story will be, given I am a keyboard user, when I encounter interactive content, I can control it solely from the keyboard, and I can visually locate where I am on the page. For app, that's external keyboard, so a Bluetooth keyboard. And for web, that could be laptop or desktop keyboard, or a Bluetooth one if you wanted. And I've got on screen a couple of images of what my actual own setup looks like when I'm doing that testing. Then we go into what that looks like for our testing team. So this is a high-level sample of some of the guidance that we provide. So keyboard access and visible focus, how to test it on web, how to test it on app. And it covers things such as the right keyboard shortcuts, tab, shift, tab, enter, space, arrow keys, ensuring that all of those interactive elements can be activated, and that they have a visible focus indicator. It also includes if there's anything a little bit tricky, like on our iOS app, we have custom actions, which can be really helpful for some different types of people with disability, particularly screen reader users. But if you're using an external keyboard, you need to know the particular command to activate them, which is tab Z. So what are some of the challenges? One thing I've noticed is keeping web and app progressing at the same pace is still a work in progress. We were doing some work on the checkout flow. That was done first in app, and then maybe a couple months later, followed by in web. But one positive thing I noticed, we have a new initiative coming up, which is around the Missing Anything screen. That is just one project. It's not two separate initiatives, which should be really good. Then there's maintaining team culture. And this can be challenging when you're in a big organization and you may have a lot of turnover, which we've heard about from a few speakers before. How do you maintain the culture in that sort of scenario? And for us, it really comes back to how you can embed that culture and that shared responsibility. Accessibility is not just for the accessibility analysts like myself, but it's part of everybody's responsibility. And things like the tip sheet for designers, they own that. That's their responsibility. And that's how we share the workload and can get more done. Leading on with training and documentation. So we've got pretty good documentation for the designers and also for the around the requirements, but we can still really improve around the testing and also for developers. Lastly, staying across all squad work. As a small squad, it can be really challenging. 4 of us, there's 20 plus squads at Coles that are working, so it's all about how we can share that responsibility, like I mentioned, and set people up for success. So in summary, digital accessibility models, they can be adapted for building web and native app features together. Do it through incremental changes. So make sure to check with how you're going and review your progress and assess the process end to end to identify what parts of it you might need to change and adapt. And the question I wanted to leave with you, so after this slide, I'll put up the QR code, but the question I wanted to leave you with was, how will you prepare your accessibility practice for change? I'd encourage you to review and reflect on your own accessibility strategy and take advantage of our wonderful Alley Camp and build community and learn together. So thank you, everyone.
Alley Camp, celebrating 10 years.